Hi everybody. It's Ashley Backwoods from LG Backlash. So today's video is going to be about validation. So we hear about this just about everywhere. Trans women are women. Trans men are men. Non-binary is valid. What does it mean to be valid? So I have a sheet here from the DBT Skills and Training Worksheet handbook. So let's figure out, what does it mean to validate somebody's gender identity? Okay. So there's four little sections here. So validation means finding the kernel of truth in another's perspective or situation, verifying the facts of a situation. Okay. Acknowledging that a person's emotions, thoughts, and behaviors have causes and are therefore understandable. Okay. Number 4 is where this starts to really break down. So it's not necessarily agreeing with the other person. And the last one, the most controversial of all, not validating what is invalid. So we understand, or we should understand, that things like non-binary, it's an ideology that stems from queer theory. All of this stems from queer theory. Not everybody follows transgender ideology. So when we say that trans women are women, that is a lie. I just sounded like Maury Povich there for a second. I'll channel my inner Maury. Okay. Not necessarily agreeing with the other person. Okay, so if they say, hey, I'm a trans woman, I'm a real woman, that doesn't mean you have to agree with them. You don't validate what's invalid. Say, hey, that's great that... Ooh, what did I just drop? Okay, I dropped my mouse. Okay. Yeah, so you can acknowledge that they feel like a woman, whatever that means, but that doesn't mean tell them they're a woman. It means validate their feelings. You don't validate their ideology for them. That's toxic. If people don't learn self-validation, they're not going to develop the thick skin to deal with people who are assholes, and there's assholes out there. We all know that. So I think the majority of radical feminists and gender critical people, they don't have an issue with trans people. They have an issue with the ideology. They want to protect same-sex spaces. So a lot of us acknowledge that gender dysphoria is real. It's a real mental illness, or gender identity disorder is the mental illness. Yes, so why do we validate? It improves our relationships by showing we listen and understand. It improves interpersonal effectiveness by reducing pressure to prove who is right. Negative reactivity, anger. It makes problem solving, closeness, and support possible. Very, very noble things to support somebody, of course. And validation hurts. So invalidation, yeah, it does hurt. It does hurt. Brené Brown does a great TED Talk about the power of vulnerability. I believe she wrote a book about it, and I think I read it. I'm just a space cadet right now. Section 4, important things to validate. This is very, very important. Important things to validate. The valid, and only the valid, the facts of a situation, a person's experiences, feelings, beliefs, opinions, thoughts about something, suffering, and difficulties. So it's about validating facts, their experiences, their feelings, their thoughts, their suffering, and their difficulties. It is not lying to a person. It is not telling them that everything is valid. Like, a person can be valid, but that doesn't mean that a pan-lesbian is valid. The idea of a pan-lesbian is valid. So, like, same goes for non-binary. When people say, like, non-binary is valid, like, let's agree to disagree there. But the person who is non-binary is valid. But that doesn't make non-binary a valid gender identity. Remember, every invalid response makes sense in some way. Validation is not necessarily agreeing. Validation doesn't mean you like it. And lastly, only validate the valid. So when you tell people that yes, trans women are women, I think it sets a really bad precedent. So with all that in mind, how does one validate somebody's gender identity? Does it mean validating every inch of their ideology that you may or may not agree with? How would you validate somebody's gender identity with this in mind? Does it change your thoughts on the mantra that people parrot, trans women are women? Does it change your views on what it means to validate somebody? I hope this is helpful. Yeah, so this is right out of the DBT workbook. And yeah. Yes, I'm going to find that mouse now and end this video.